in nonlinear pedagogy, there's kind of five big principles, and this is a fantastic book here for anyone that would be interested in exploring it in more detail. I'm kind of giving a brief overview here, but this is a fantastic book, and I think there's a new version out as well. There's like a good bit of practical examples in it as well, which is really good. So there's five key principles, and I'll kind of start just going through some of them now. So I have two stars next to this. So representative learning design. So this is kind of, I suppose, the key, um, one of the key, I suppose, aspects of skill acquisition. So representative learning design. So learning needs to be situated in an environment that adequately represents the demands of the performance environment. So if we talk about improving a athlete environment relationship, we need to have an environment that kind of represents the demands of the performance environment. So it doesn't need to be the exact same, and good coaching is kind of scaling it to suit the needs of the athletes. And the main focus is making sure that the athlete will be interacting with similar information to inform their action. So it doesn't, like, in the constraint set approach, one of the kind of, or if we're applying some of these ideas in practice, one of the kind of misunderstandings is that it's kind of like just playing the game. It's not like we kind of, it's something I'll talk about in a later slide. It's like we kind of create elements of the game. So like we create slices of the game, and we give kind of players opportunities to explore that. So it's like, again, I'll get into it in a minute, but I don't want to get into it too much here. So manipulate constraints. So constraints, our coaches can use these to guide players towards solutions. And the key point is that, like, we don't use them to force a solution. And that's the mistake a lot of coaches, including myself, made when I was starting out with it. So constraints don't force. We use constraints to guide. So it's kind of like a guided discovery kind of approach. And there's three categories, which I'll also get into in a minute. There's task, environment, and organism. So organism is the like the personal constraints. The environment are the constraints of the environment, and then the task. So that's kind of like the rules, the area, etc. So attentional focus. So I was kind of talking at the start about external, internal focus of attention. This is one of the kind of key principles of nonlinear pedagogy. So we should use instructions or feedback that encourage an external focus of attention as much as possible, as these kind of reduce the conscious control of movement. So one of the kind of anecdotes in that book, The Inner Game of Tennis, was that, like, if your opponent is, if any of you play golf or something like that, or even like any kind of technical skill, if your opponent is playing really well, ask them, oh, what are you doing on your swing today? So like in tennis, you'd say, oh, you're hitting your forehand really well. Can you explain exactly what you're doing? And then they actually start thinking about what they're doing, and their performance will get worse. It's a nice trick to have if you're playing a competitive game of golf. Just ask, oh, can you tell me exactly what you're doing on your swing? And then when they try to explain, they'll be thinking about it on their next shot, and they'll mess up, or if they won't hit it as well. So, that's a tip for some of you if you want. So, um, one example from tennis is like, some of you might have heard of topspin, or knuckleball in soccer. Kind of like goes up and it comes down really fast. So what we'd say in tennis is you try hit the ball like a rainbow, so it goes up and it comes down. And we don't really tell them exactly what to do, so we give them a kind of analogy. Ensuring functional variability is number four. So in nonlinear pedagogy, variability is actually useful, and it's not something that we try to reduce. So we do reduce it, but we don't remove it. So like, it depends on like what the learner needs, how much we'd reduce it. Sometimes we might even increase it, but um so we kind of look at this through repetition without repetition. That's a concept or concept some people may have heard of if they've heard anything about ecological dynamics before. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to encourage performers to achieve similar different task goals under a variety of conditions. So we're not encouraging the replication of an ideal movement. We're encouraging the athletes to solve a similar problem in different ways. So the goal is to solve the problem, not to produce a movement. Obviously, if they're doing it in a dangerous way, we move them away from that, or something that might like put them at risk. But we're giving them a room to explore different ways of solving the problem. So the last one then is develop relevant information movement coupling. So we're going to try designing opportunities for action that are linked to the information. So where one of the concepts that we talked about was affordances. We're going to try keep the same. We're going to try keep affordances in the environment, and we're going to kind of encourage players to couple their movements to the affordances that are there. So I know that kind of might sound a bit complicated, but basically we need to make sure that the key information is present, like representative learning design, and the players are using their movement, are like coupling their movements to that. So like we can, like one of the main things there is having, maybe if you're playing an invasion game or a divided court game, that you have an opponent there, so they're learning to couple their actions to key information from their opponent.